what's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Brent Pritt with Science of Falling, and today I got a special treat for you. I was invited onto the PK podcast that my buddy Ed Whitehead runs, and we talked about shoes, footwear, feet in general, how to keep them healthy, as well as all things parkour and related to that. Additionally, I hope you enjoyed the new intro music. I'm trying to keep things fresh, keep it update a little bit, always improve Science of Falling. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Anyway, let's get into it and listen in.
Here we go. Let's see if this works.
There it is.
There you are.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's happening, my dude?
Not much. Just chilling early morning in California, you know? How you doing?
I'm good. How's the weather over there? Better than over here, I hope.
Oh, it's fantastic, man. It's looking good.
Oh,
Blue skies.
So jealous. I don't know if you can hear it. I have like a metal roof on my house, and it's just like chucking it. Yeah. So what I kind of wanted to do today was kind of, chit chat, like parkour, chit chat about like footwear, foot health, things like that. So for Brent's audience who don't know me, my name's Ed Whitehead, parkour instructor over at the Main Warrior Gym. I'm an ISSA certified personal trainer. I've been doing parkour for a little over 10 years, probably 11, 12 at this point. Been practicing coach for about 7. Met Brent through parkour. Swell dude. He's a groomsman at my wedding and all that stuff, and he's been a really good friend. Brent, you want to give a little bio about yourself for my folks?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Brent Pritt. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I was actually going to University of New England in Portland, Maine for a while. That's how me and Ed hooked up, actually. One of the first places I ever went to when I moved to Maine, like in the first 2 days, was the Main Warrior Gym. And it was kind of my first little Maine family out there. So it was really cool to meet everybody and find that kind of like-mindedness there. So I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I moved back to California. Still up in the air if I'm staying here or going back to Maine. But I work as an outpatient physical therapist at a place called Stone Hills Physical Therapy. And I run Science of Falling. It's a project I started about 6 months ago, I think, when I was studying for my boards, all about basically bridging the gap of falling techniques and balancing into the physical therapy world, because I just don't think, some of the cool techniques that are in parkour ever translated into that world, and they're just so beneficial. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and do come back, because we miss you a ton, bud. Like, come back. I think it's interesting, right? Because I think I was actually talking. I forget who I was talking to yesterday, but we were talking about. Oh, it was Jesse. I was talking to Jesse because we were out training. Talking basically about the healthcare model, right? How it's very like remedial versus preventative, and I feel like there's the assumption that there's not money in preventative healthcare, and that's why there's so much focus on treatment versus prevention. But I think like a big part of like what you're aiming to do with Science of Falling is to prevent those injuries from happening in the first place, which I think is pretty noble.
100%. Yeah, it comes down to insurance, and I know a lot of your audience probably doesn't care that much about the insurance side. It's all about parkour, right? But yeah, so it comes down to insurance, and it's all red tape. It's so hard to get people like the actual help they need because insurance doesn't want to pay out. But I'm like, parkour is such a functional, like awesome sport that I told somebody the other day, it's like driver's ed for the body. Everybody has to take a driver's ed course to drive a car, but nobody has to learn how to, drive their own body and be able to protect themselves and use the emergency brake, which is basically falling. Like, It doesn't make any sense to me. It feels like something that every kid in high school and middle school should be taking as a PE classes, like parkour, how to fall. Like, it's just so useful.
Yeah, I mean, are you familiar with the Sierra program, like high school phys ed, like during the Kennedy administration at all?
Sounds familiar, yeah,
so
a little bit.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, sounds familiar, but you're the history buff. That's your lane, man.
Yeah. I mean, I forget where exactly in California, but it was the La Sierra high school, and essentially it was part of a bid from the Kennedy administration that it was essentially like proto parkour, right? Where like they had the idea that, you know, if you have a strong body, you have a strong mind, and then you're going to be a more productive citizen to the republic, you know. So yeah, so there was this program. It was almost a little militant, you know, like it was a lot of like calisthenics, but like these like, I don't know, it's kind of like in old movies where like it's like they're 16 but they're really like 45. Like these kids were like jacked, you know, like they didn't look like teenagers, but they like the discipline and, yeah, the self-discipline and the rigor that they were going through was like some pretty like rough stuff, which I think, you know, is kind of lacking today. There's not enough like challenge, and I think, you know, parkour is kind of like, you know, the productive struggle, right? And being able to learn and, you know, to learn yourself through that. So, you know, I think, you know, moving into like footwear, you know, there's a lot of, I think, you know, it's funny. I just recently switched footwear. I'm wearing, familiar with Strike Movement?
No, you were telling me about this, and they're pretty good, but I haven't worn them or really tried them out yet.
Yeah, they're a little on the pricey side, but I think it's, you know, it's worth it just from the performance that I've been getting out of them. Just like from the grip alone, they're godly. Yeah, it's like this cross-platform, like solid rubber construction. But the big thing about them is that they're kind of they're very flat, and they have like a low drop point on them. But not like, I've been training in the Vans Ultra Range for a better part of like almost 2 years up until I was in the Strikes. And, you know, I was of the mind that, you know, having a little bit of extra cushioning, you know, was, you know, saving my joints and stuff. What I actually found, which was super surprising, is going to more minimalist footwear. I found that it was a lot more responsive, and I actually have less joint pain. I'm able to manage things and impacts better, whereas kind of letting the foam do a bit too much for me. So, you know, in your experience of footwear and kind of like the science of falling project, like how does footwear, you know, affect one's health and their joints and, you know, the, you know, fall risk and things like that?
It's huge. It's so huge. And I think it's one of those things that, you know, for babies where we pop out the womb and we got these nice toes splaying out, and these feet are, you know, not necessarily ready for the world because you're just popped out, but your muscles are primed to get up and start, you know, working and trying to learn how to use that foot and everything. And as we grow, at some point, we just, either our parents or, you know, grandparents, somebody puts us into these little tennis shoes. And you know, the one thing I always think about is, in California, at least, you know, when the new Nikes drop, parents will try to get their kids a Nike at all costs, even if it's a size or two below their foot size, just to make their feet look cool. And then think about that, what that does to a foot. Yeah, exactly. Like it scrunches their foot. You're basically doing like the Chinese foot binding it on like a certain level.
Well, it's funny when you said that, because I didn't like the way I heard that was like they were trying to like intentionally shape their foot a certain way, not just to have like cool sneakers on their feet. Like, wait, that's a little weird. But I
no, but
yeah,
essentially shoes have become this status symbol, and this which is, I mean, fine. Like I'm a shoeaholic. Like I'll buy shoes and try to like buy the coolest ones I can, but it destroys your feet, man. And it's all the cushion. It's the heel, or the lack of a zero heel drop. And it's just, you know, the toes get binded. That's where bunions come from. And all these things, like shoes have so much to do with our foot health and our movement ability. And if you get something that's more minimalist, your foot's going to work the way it should work. You won't get, you know, jacked up toes. You will have a strong arch and a strong just foot in general. And, you know, in terms of parkour, since that's kind of the audience we're going for here, you're going to move better with less impact force, and you're going to use your ankles, your knees, your hips, everything a lot more efficiently to absorb the force, rather than waiting for that, you know, that 1 or 2 inches of foam on the back to take all the force for you. And then you just get lazy. I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me, but it's the way we've been inundated with these shoes since we were a kid. And it's just, you know, it's what we're used to, and moving to a minimalist shoe seems scary because it hurts. You're not ready for
it. And I think, you know, as you said, I think it's been the narrative that's been told for so long is that, you know, like supportive and cushiony footwear is going to give you better endurance and stuff, but it's really just kind of like so almost like a safety net and kind of like a crutch. I've found, like, I'm noticing that I'm even in just like 2 weeks of wearing shoes, I'm like jumping farther, jumping higher. My landings are better, they're quieter. So I'm a convert. Like I'm getting into minimalist footwear. I still have an arch in my shoe because I do have pretty flat feet and I have this like Q angle with my knees. But just like having that flat foundation, I'm noticing big improvements in my own personal parkour practice.
Yeah, and I think that's one huge important thing, kind of what you're saying, but it's kind of a tangent off of it, is that even though minimalist shoes and things with a shoe with a wide toe box are really, really good for you, there is a breaking in period. There's a getting used to it period. There's a period where your feet and your legs are going to feel like they're trash because you've never done this before. I always say you can't go into the gym and never have lifted 400 pounds and then lift 400 pounds. It doesn't work. And people look at your feet like there's something different because we're on them all day, but we're on them all day with pillows on our feet because these shoes have so much foam. So the minute you go essentially barefoot or, minimalist footwear everywhere, you're going to be sore. Your arch is going to be working more.
Yeah.
Your bones are going to be remodeling. Like they're not ready for that force, especially in parkour. So there's a breaking in period. And in the first couple of weeks, if you're not ready for that, terrible, like just bad time of being sore all the time, you're not going to make it, and you're going to have the misconception that they're actually bad for you. But I think you're right. Like after 2 weeks, you probably feel great.
Yeah. And that's kind of, there is some foam in these strikes, right? It's not like a total zero drop, but it's it's a low drop, right? So like I am a lot lower to the ground, so I definitely feel it. And you're right. Like you definitely don't want to be going into the gym with like a pair of like 5 fingers and like expect them to feel like ultra rangers, you know what I mean? You're gonna like bruise your heel or something. So yeah, you definitely want to like wean yourself in. It's interesting, like with I've had concurrent ankle injuries over the course of my parkour career, and wearing these shoes, I had a pair of low tops that I wore briefly of the specific shoe. And even though it was a low top, just like being lower to the ground, I felt a lot more stable, like it wasn't like wearing a high heel, was like, wearing different between wearing a stiletto and like a slipper, you know what I mean? So like, I think that's a misconception. It's like, this heel in the back of the foot is going to be hurting you in more ways than one. It makes you so much more susceptible to rolling your ankle over. My dad actually just really wrecked his ankle walking down the stairs in a pair of Hokas.
Hokas are. I have lots of patients that come in now, and they're all about. They love Hokas, and I'm like, Hokas are cool, but they're just a normal running shoe. Like, there's not really much
one at that.
Yeah. But carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's just like the archetypical thick-heeled, soft, pillowy running shoe, right? And he wasn't even doing anything. He was walking down the stairs, and now he might have an avulsion fracture, so like, So it's, he's going in this week to go speak with an orthopedist. He had an x-ray, and like nothing's definitive, but it's like pointing towards that. Which is unfortunate because he's a marathon runner and stuff, and it would like put him out for a while. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting, just like how, like parkour is cool because I feel like it's trying to almost like it's kind of like you were saying, it's like the like driver's ed for the body, like coming back to the roots and the foundation of it, where there's so many things that are trying to like kind of forget like where how we move and where we come from, right? Getting more in touch with our environment, more in touch with our own bodies and in tune with it, with like big machines and things to like pop up our chests and our glamour muscles and then like walk around like this all day. So like I think it's interesting with parkour though, because like it's kind of hard. It's a hard sport to monetize because of how inherently accessible it is. It's kind of a catch-22 where because I mean, if you look at skateboarding, for example, right, you have a quantifiable competitive model for the sport, right? And then you have the deck, and you have the grip tape, and you have the trucks and the wheels and the bearings and whatever. So you can all sell that, and a company can be like, we're going to sponsor Bam Margera or Neen Williams to go wear our t-shirt and do some cool stuff on skateboards and maybe put a sticker on his deck or something. But with parkour, it's a little harder because it's a bit more, it's broader and it's more nuanced, and it's a young sport still, right? Relatively speaking. So it's, the standard for footwear hasn't really been super established yet, right? There have been attempts to make footwear for parkour, like K-Swiss was probably the first that I can think of that I was trying to replicate the Kalengis in the K-Swiss Ariake. And I had a pair of those, and I thought they were the coolest ever. And it was just a little cringy now. But then Tempest has had a couple of iterations of parkour shoe, and their most recent one, the Flair Pro Model 1, that Jesse the Flair is his signature shoe that they're all wearing on Ultimate Tag and stuff like that. But even then, it's kind of it's got this thick heel and stuff like that. But going on to tag and stuff, I've been watching World Chase Tag at all.
No, man, I don't have TV. I really want to. I have Netflix and stuff like that. But oh my God, I know they're finally airing it on TV, right? So I mean, I've kept up with the YouTube videos and stuff from the past, but I haven't seen any new stuff. But it's kind of interesting that they're all. I think padding in a shoe has its place. I think, and I'm gonna make it akin to a CrossFit thing that I kind of talk about sometimes. So if you look at a CrossFitter in a competition, right? They do kipping pull-ups.
Yep.
Because they're efficient, they save time, they're super quick. But I listened to a chiropractor one time, who's a really cool chiropractor that I follow. But he's big in the CrossFit world, and he says, there's a time and a place for everything, but a kipping pull-up should only be in competition because it doesn't actually make you any stronger. It's all about technique. And once you have the strength underlying that kipping pull-up, you're going to do way better in competition. So do normal pull-ups outside of the competition and only do kipping pull-ups in the competition. So if we bring that to kind of the shoe era, train everything barefoot, train everything with minimalist shoes. So your feet get super, super strong. Your mechanics get on point. And then once you're in a competition, throw on some of those Jesse Flair shoes, have the padding there so you can make those big jumps and make those big dives and chase tag. And now you're almost superhuman because you have that extra padding would deter from you most of the time, but because you're only wearing it in certain points, it actually ups your game a little bit instead of detracts from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know. I'm of two minds of that because I feel like with parkour, I know for me, certainly, there's, you get used to how something feels, and tactility is super important in parkour. Being able to respond to when, if you have I don't know, maybe I overthink things compared to the average parkour athlete, but the way that something feels underfoot in a pair of strikes is going to feel very different to how it feels in a pair of Vans, right?
Yes.
So, if you get so used to training a certain way, I'm kind of the mindset where if I were to say go into a competition, I'm training as if I would be in the competition, right? So it's I don't know, kind of like method acting, I guess, right? So being always kind of game ready, and knowing what to expect. I think if I were to if I'm training in my strikes and then go into competition with the ultra range, it would feel kind of weird.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
I think maybe it takes a ramp up period. I don't know. Cause for me, it's because they go hard in those competitions, any kind of parkour competition, you're hucking it, you're diving for it, whatever you're doing, your body kind of goes on the wayside for that competition.
Yeah.
So I think, if we're talking like that, I totally agree with you. And maybe if you're trying to get the best of both worlds, you do like you normal training, always in a barefoot, always in the strike movements, whatever you want to do. And then like, for a month before the competition, you train in the shoe you plan on training in, or you just train in the shoe you've been training in if you're okay with that extra impact on your foot. I mean, the body does have its limits, and you have to train with those impacts to make it so you can kind of survive the competitions.
Yeah.
I think it's a personal opinion, but I agree with you. I just think there can be some benefit to switching shoes out for the shock absorption factor, maybe not for the feel factor.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because I made like a bold switch over to the strikes, and I haven't trained outdoors with them yet. I mean, like you're in a controlled gym environment. We have like wood obstacles. There are hard obstacles. So I'm prepared, in that sense. But I haven't tried going back to the Vans yet to see, to kind of feel the difference.
Yeah.
But just in the improvements that I see in like my technique and how I feel afterwards training, I feel like I'd be hard pressed to go back.
Totally understand. Well, yeah, my first minimalist type shoe, basically with the, a flat sole and good grip, was the Fayus. And man, going from, when I first started parkour, I just wore like running shoes inside because I was an idiot. But I started using those Fayus, and it feels so much different under your foot. You can feel everything. The grip's amazing. Don't get me wrong, but the shoe you wear is going to dictate how you move. And I moved way differently with the Fayus versus the running shoes, just because when I did a rail precision, just the feeling on the balls of my feet, I could feel everything. If my technique was shot, I was not in a happy mood afterwards.
Right.
So I mean, yeah. So,
yeah. I was just going to say that, like, I feel like from that perspective, it's much better to train in, a more minimalist shoe that's like, more flexible, that you can feel more of the ground in, because it's going to make your technique better. Like with, big padded heavy shoes, or just padded shoes, they're going to be things that you don't necessarily feel in the moment, but over time is going to come back to bite you.
Yeah, 100%. It's all cumulative damage on your body, and if your technique is flawed, and then you change shoes one day, or you just keep using a crappy technique, your knees or your hips or something's going to pay for it. Especially in a sport like parkour. I mean, the amount of forces going through your body and what you have to basically absorb is insane. And if you're so used to a padded heel, taking 10-20% of that force, whatever it might be, your technique's probably pretty shoddy at that point.
Yeah. So let's talk about knees. In your practice, when folks come in for knee stuff, like what is their chief complaint with the knee, and two, what kind of shoes are they wearing on their feet?
For sure. Yeah. So knee stuff is interesting because the knee is what I've heard called the dumb joint. It doesn't really do much. It has more, flexion extension. It's a hinge joint. It has a little bit of rotation at the tib and fib. But for the most part, people come in with aches and pains. Some people have meniscus tears. But it all really comes down to how the hip and the foot are working. So, is the hip stabilized with the glutes, the butt muscles? Are they able to stabilize the hip, which ends up stabilizing the knee? But also at the feet, if we go down there, if the feet aren't able to support themselves, so either they're not stable enough because a padded shoe with an arch is adding all the stability for them, and the muscles in the foot just aren't firing up, that causes instability at the knee. It's kind of like the body's kind of like a Jenga tower. If you have a Jenga tower and you take out two of the blocks from the bottom and it's just hanging on one single block, any kind of little force is going to make the whole tower fall down. So, the foot, a lot of these people come in and they have, normal tennis shoes, stuff they've been told by doctors, podiatrists, somebody that these are good for you. They have a good arch support, all this stuff. And I just look at them and I'm like, all right, well, let's take your shoes off. Let's do a single leg squat. Let's see how much your knee wobbles while you're doing this. Do you have any stability here, or are you just lacking motor control? And 9 times out of 10, their foot can't stay fully on the ground. So they start losing their big toe off the ground or something, and their stability is gone. Their knee wobbles in and out. and their hip starts doing this weird little dance. And it's just the shoes that people are wearing, and a lot of them are going to be Hoka's or what's the other one? Brooks. People love Brooks and Saucony's and all these like these really good, famous running shoes or fitness shoes, but for the fact of being an actual foot, they don't really work. So these people have these shoes that are great for them, but because they're great for them, they do all the work for them, and then their foot becomes really shoddy, and then it ends up leading to a knee problem, a hip problem, something else. And I would say shoes lead to more knee problems than anything else because it just changes your mechanics. It changes how you walk. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, talking about like the break-in period of shoes, right? Like, it's funny. Like, I won't lie. Like, definitely was sore in spots that I wasn't expecting to be. Like, particularly like in my calves, right? Just because like my heel is like flatter to the ground. And there's more like dorsey or like no, not dorsey, like plantar flexion in the foot, pushing away. But it was like a good sore, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh no, my patella tendonitis, it was interesting, just like experiencing kind of like, is this how it's supposed to feel? You know what I mean? Like, just like this.
It's weird, right?
Yeah. So it was weird going in because I totally expected to like feel like every single impact, and like like I definitely like I eased into it at first, like it's like let's see how this feels, like little precision here, little drop here, and as time went on, you just like start to feel better, and I think just based off of that, I would certainly encourage just from a performance perspective that minimalism is the way to go, and I guess what we're hearing from you is that from like a health professional's perspective is like that's the way to go.
It is, and just with a caveat that you got to build into it. I mean, your body does an amazing way, or has an amazing way of adapting. So if you go from a really padded shoe, most of the time you're going to do it with a heel strike, right? Because that's where all the padding is and it feels the best and blah blah blah. And when we walk, we kind of walk that way too. But then when you go to a minimalist shoe, your body at first, your first couple of steps are going to be rough because you're still programmed to hit with your heel, and then it's just, oh my God, there's no padding there. But eventually you start hitting your feet a little bit flatter. You start running a little more, on the front of your toes and stuff. And that's what you do when we're barefoot, because you physically can't run heel toe or heel strike when you're barefoot because you're going to break your calcaneus or something.
Right.
But yeah, for sure. If you know there's a break-in period, like a body adaptation period, and you expect that, and you're expect it to be maybe a couple months or even 6 months of doing it, 100% way better for your health. It's going to cause way less injury. And there's a lot of people that would argue that, but a lot of those people look at it, in the moment. If we switch shoes right now, which one's going to give us less injury? If we look at it as a build-up, ramping up period, it's going to be a whole different story.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's an interesting point. I was just thinking about this because I've got my cat on my lap here, right? And here she is. There's Nina. And like you see like how her feet are, right? So like that would be like the ball of her foot here, there, and the heel is in the back there. So like you see it in nature too, right? It's like that 4-foot strike is kind of like how most creatures in nature move. So why would it be any different for us?
Yeah, it's true. And I think it's a partly a psychology thing because we are a slave to our experiences in life. So, if someone's only been alive for, 30, 40 years, all they know is the shoes that we have. But, the shoes that we have nowadays are pretty new in the space of history and space of human history. Even like, normal running shoes like Adidas and stuff were only made 100 years ago. And then they started, trying to change the heels and adding more padding because there was, you have to get speed when you're running, which was a big, a rich person sport back in the day, because you had to be able to afford these shoes. You're looking at how fast your turnover rate is for your feet or how long your stride rate is. So they said, if we add more padding here, we can increase the stride rate, which means that we can go farther, faster. And it was just this really misconceived notion. I mean, it was a well put together idea. It made sense and it works. But that's the problem. We have good intentions with these shoes, And then now that's all we know. So that it seems normal, quote unquote, but also being obese and overweight and unhealthy in America is normal too.
Yeah.
So the normal isn't good. It's what we just are okay with. And minimalist shoes are actually the real normal. They're not even normal. Shoes in general aren't normal. But it's what is more normal for us while adding the protections that we need in the modern world with nails. And, some places like have needles and stuff in the ground and parks and whatnot for kids. Like you don't want those kids walking around there without shoes on. So having a minimalist shoe with a wide toe box is going to make your foot more normal. And I think it's another fact to reiterate this is, having a left and right shoe, which seems pretty obvious to most of us, is a pretty new invention. I think it's only been around around the same, like 100 years or so, maybe give or take 20 years. Back in the day, they had one shoe, no left and right. And that just sounds crazy to us now. So if you think about it, none of it makes any sense. It's just progressively getting better. And I think our progress is for evolution of the shoe is going to end up going backwards, but still evolving the shoe into a more minimalist but protective kind of covering.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say backwards. I would say probably more more maybe authentic. I think.
Yeah.
I think what I really like about Strike Movement as a company is that they're trying to make shoes that can kind of do a little bit of everything, and they encourage that 4-foot strike. You can lift in them, you can cross train, you can travel. So being able to kind of like you were saying, stand up to the modern hazards of today while still being authentic to the human form. So I think I think that's what definitely if you're looking to if you are a parkour athlete and you're looking to be as good as you can, I think you need to be authentic, and there may be a bit of an awkward break-in period, but I think the main takeaway from this, I think, is that minimalist is better. It doesn't have to be like a 5-finger just piece of rubber slapped onto your foot, but it doesn't want to be finding a nice middle ground between this high-heeled Hoka and a slipper. I think is athletically the way to go.
I agree, and it's super super cool now. There used to be a very few minimalist type shoes, like Vibrams was the biggest one, and then they started getting sued and whatnot, and it was all this big hoopla. But there's so many minimalist shoes nowadays, and they all are starting to look pretty dope. Some of them are really ugly. I'm a big shoe connoisseur. I like good looking shoes. And I have a pair of Witten running shoes, and they're ugly as hell. They're god awful. I hate them, but they feel so good when I run in them. And then I just got a new pair of Lems for my work shoes that I'm doing a 30-day healthy foot challenge and just trying to do everything minimalist shoe, work on my feet and everything right now. And the first couple of days were rough again, like we were talking about, but the shoes look good. They feel freaking fantastic. And there's so many styles and flavors of minimalist shoes now. It's awesome, but that also makes it harder to find a good one for your chosen sport like parkour. I know a parkour buddy of mine was asking me about the Lems I'm wearing now. He was asking if they have good grip on the bottom, because you don't want to go for a rail pre and then just slip out.
Yeah. And
I have a little rail I balance on here, and I was trying them out. I was like, they're kind of okay, but the intention behind the design that Lems never said this is going to be a parkour shoe. Where Strike Movement's like, all right, let's figure this out. This needs to be an everything type shoe. Yeah. I honestly think, man, if Feiju's had a better structure of their shoe with the same rubber on the bottom, ultimate parkour shoe for sure. Only parkour though. They wouldn't be good for anything else, but they'd be good for parkour.
It's funny. I heard a super interesting fact about Feiju's last week. You know how when you get them out the box, they have this sort of peach fuzz on the bottom of them. Yeah, so they do that so that they can write it off as a slipper, not an athletic shoe, so they can get taxed less for it.
Why does that not surprise me?
Feiju is totally legit.
Feiju seems like the sketchiest big company I've ever heard of. I'm sure they're all on the up and up, but you just get their stuff and there's like knockoff version of their shoes. And it's just like it's the weirdest, coolest shoe company I know of.
Feiyu, I think, just got bought a couple years ago by a UK company. So now they're like the authentic Feiyu, right?
Yeah,
pretty much the same. Caleb was sent a pair of shoes from them to like demo and
sick.
review and stuff. But even these, like the authentic Feiyu, still had this like peach fuzz on the bottom of them that you had to like grind off with like a piece of sandpaper. But no, I mean, the strike movement's cool because they have like parkour folks who they sponsor. Just like I'm trying to think, I forget his actual name, but on Instagram he's I am Wavezilla. I don't know.
Oh, he's so dope. He's actually out here in California. I think he's in, where is he, in Oakland or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he's got what's their he has a gym, doesn't he?
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah,
he has a gym, but I think he has like the team squadron or something like that. But that dude, just because we're talking about him, that dude has the sickest, like dopest, just cleanest flow I've ever seen. I can watch that guy just move for hours. Like he's up there with what is it? I never can say his name right. Bosky? What is his name? Yeah. Like I think those two have the cleanest movement ever, and it's just it's dope. I don't know. Sorry, I'm man crushing right now. I'm man crushing on that man's parkour skills.
Yeah, well, strike movement. There you go. I am Wavezilla, endorsed by strike movement. So it's funny. We kind of like got off track a little bit with like we were talking about like talk about more about parkour and chase tag. I think chase tag has huge potential to potentially monetize parkour and bring some kind of industry standard to parkour shoes, because it's kind of like, it's almost like how the UFC started, right? UFC started kind of like underground, like in people's backyards, right? And then now is like, it revolutionized MMA. So I feel like, what we're seeing in World Chase Tag is very similar, right? So like underground started to get media attention. Now it's on like a major TV network, and I think the parkour lends itself to chase tag, right? So I think it has huge potential because it's like super easy to understand, right? Like you just don't get tagged by the other guy. That's the only rule, right? It's the action is intense, the stakes are high, you can definitely get hurt real badly if you mess up, right? So people are on the edge of their seats, whereas like it's hard, like with things like like the Red Bull Art of Motion. It's a very individual event where like and don't get me wrong, like the stuff that folks are doing in like Red Bull Art of Motion are like it's crazy. And with like same with NAPC, right? The speed, skill, style stuff is crazy, but it's still like an individual sport. So when you have two people competing against each other, it kind of changes the dynamic of that situation. I think folks can kind of get more behind that. Something is a bit more primal, I guess.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's kind of embodies everything parkour is about. It started as a grassroots thing, and so it's still owned really by the parkour people. They made it. Chase tag is just something, or just parkour tag rather, has been something people have done since parkour was created, just to play around and like work on their skills and just have fun, right? So it's gone from just a training and messing around technique to a real sport, and now you have teams. And like we were talking about before about monetizing parkour, this gives people a chance to sell some like team swag and get the shoe brands, and it turns into an actual
like an industry.
An industry that's accessible to the modern person, because it's interesting. Whereas all the other competitions, art of motion and stuff, are super dope, but it's more for the community,
right?
And then Red Bull just slaps a name on it because it's it's an extreme sport, but it's not for other people. It's for the community to express themselves and cheer each other on, and it's more of it's not really competitive. People aren't out there like hating on their opponents. They're like, giving them props if they do a good run, and they go on and they try to beat them, obviously. But whereas chase tag, it's like there's props to the other team, but we're going to destroy you, and we're going to make it fast and fun.
Yeah.
So
so thoughts on? Have you seen Ultimate Tag?
Oh, the ripoff.
Yeah,
I've seen clips of it. I haven't really watched it because I was like, man, this is such a ripoff. I was actually a little perturbed. It kind of brought me back to the whole gymnastics thing. I was a little like put off by it, but it's interesting.
It's interesting in that I watched the first season, and then as it went on, it was entertaining for like the first couple of episodes, but then you would see like it was very like kitschy and like it was obviously reality TV, right? It was like very
for sure
gimmicky and with like like folks coming in, like here comes like the flow and Spitfire, as opposed to like Tavon McVee and Sidney Olsen, right? Like it kind of like it almost like delegitimizes the athlete. You know what I mean?
It totally does. And a lot of those people who were the actual like chasers actually pro athletes, parkour athletes and stuff like they were.
Well, yeah, Sidney Olsen, Jesse.
Oh, was Sidney Olsen? Yeah. For sure.
For they're over at Tempest.
Tavon
McVee actually was in World Chase Tag in Europe. And Fox, essentially, from what I understand, they signed a deal with him where he got a spot on like Fox TV. That's great, but then couldn't be part of World Chase Tag for 5 years because of they want him to be on their show and not on World Chase Tag. And I think obviously he is on World Chase Tag, and I think that's like that ship has sailed.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the thing that I really like about World Chase Tag is that it's fun, it's easy to understand, but it doesn't like treat parkour like it's a child. You know what I mean? Like it respects the athlete for their athletic prowess and their skill, whereas something like Ultimate Tag turns it into like a pageant. And I don't think people are going to remember Ultimate Tag, but I think people will remember World Chase Tag.
Well, World Chase Tag is like it's real. It's got that kind of gritty kind of feel to it. Like it's just like it feels like you're just watching people in some industrial area just like throwing down and having a great time versus like Ultimate Tag reminds me of that show. You may have never seen it in the 90s, American Gladiator.
American Gladiator.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like these people with these stupid names, and they're all like really good athletes in their own right. But now they basically get bought out and are owned by the corporation that, the CNBC or whoever it is. And then they change it and they don't make it a sport anymore. It's a pageant show, like you said, where World Chase Tag, here's these athletes. These athletes are doing what they do best, and they're going to throw down with their best skills and not have to use these stupid names unless they choose to have a nickname or something, right? I mean, it's them being them, really authentic.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, right? Like with the like the intros for the athletes are like on Ultimate Tag are like always the same, like pre-recorded BS. It's like Jesse the Flair shows up, and like I'm not going to knock Jesse the Flair. He's made a real name for himself. He's a great athlete,
for sure.
But like just like. It's so kitschy. It's like, you fly in my airspace, I'm gonna shoot you down, whatever. Like it doesn't make any sense. And then like they have most of them on Ultimate Tag are parkour athletes, but then there's a couple like Cirque du Soleil acrobats, and that makes sense. But then they have like competitive weightlifters. Like, who thought that was going to be a good idea? Like whatever. I don't know a real name, but like the Iron Giantess or whatever. Like,
okay.
Very strong competitive, power lifter. Like that's great, but like doesn't lend itself to like jumping over obstacles and stuff like that.
No, not even close.
Man, but no, World Chase Tag excites me a lot. We actually had our own Chase Tag event like a couple weeks back over at the Warrior Gym.
Yeah, I saw some videos that looked super awesome. I was actually jealous I wasn't there. It looked so much fun.
Yeah, I was emceeing the event, and it was a lot of fun, and I feel like it lent some authenticity to it. You know, having like a British announcer, because that's what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
The real experience. So let's wrap things up a little bit, because we both have to get on with our day. Brent, if folks want to see more of your stuff, how do they see it?
Yeah, scienceoffalling.com is really where I put everything I've been doing. I have a Science of Falling Facebook page. Science Falling Instagram is going to be science_of_falling. And then also, if you want to support the project, if you care about getting these parkour techniques out into the community and really helping people out, you can buy my Science Falling logo t-shirt on Amazon.com. There's a link in my on my homepage of the Science Falling website. Do that. A small percentage of that goes directly into my project. I don't take any profits for myself. It goes all back into the project. So if you want to help out and get parkour knowledge out into the world and change it a little bit, you can do that for me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, if you want to see more of my stuff, best place really is to go to my Instagram first. So that would be the_ed_UKader. That's a mouthful. And I have a link to my YouTube channel on there too. So it would be under Edward Whitehead, and then in parentheses, The Educator. New project I've rolled out in the last few weeks. I've been lacking in the last couple of weeks because I've been busy, but I got tutorials for parkour movements. I've got reviews for different footwear. How to find good parkour spots, what to expect from a good parkour spot, how to find parkour spots, kind of just general parkour lifestyle, culture, and technique stuff. So if you're interested, please give that a look. Subscribe. For weekly videos. It helps me out a ton, just to get my services out there and preach the parkour gospel.
All right, brother. Good seeing you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Take care.
You too.